Hi, I'm Heidi with Onigo Stamping. Welcome to my craft corner. Today's video is just a little bit different because instead of showing you how to make a card from top to bottom, I'm going to show you various techniques using the new Stampin' Up blending brushes. I love these brushes. They are absolutely fabulous for blending. Don't worry though, there's plenty of samples as I show you a card that I made using each technique. Before I get started, if you have any questions or would like to attend a card making class or host an event, please go ahead and leave me a comment or send me an email. I would love to help you out with those things. All of the dimensions and photos of today's projects can be found on my website, and you'll find the link to my website in the description to this video. Okay, Onigo, let's get stamping. So I'm going to be sharing with you some different techniques for using our new blender brushes. All of the samples that I'm going to show you today are going to use the Pretty Perennial stamp set and the Perennial Petals dies that match it. This is a gorgeous stamp set with 21 different stamps, and the dies have 23 different stamps, so just beautiful, beautiful florals, nice, big, bold sayings, so really a fun set. These are the blending brushes. You can see I've already used mine. They're kind of discolored now, but they're nice blending brushes. They're slightly flexible. The bristles are nicely soft and they're very packed in there, nice and tight. And it's domed, so can you see that? It's rounded and the edges are rounded. That's going to really help you give a nice edge to your blending. So they come in a package of 3 for $12, and so far I only have 3 of them, but I'm going to get some more because I'd like to have enough for, you know, kind of every color, a purple one, a blue one, yellow one, green one, etc. So those are the blending brushes. I am going to be using my Silicone Mat today to do my blending on. I like this because it gives me a surface off the side of my cardstock that is non-porous, so the ink won't just like soak into it. If you do it on paper, sometimes the paper just soaks up all that extra ink instead of letting it go on your card. So I like to use kind of a non-porous surface. I'm going to use the Silicone Mat. And then I'm using basic white cardstock. So I'm going to just set some basic white cardstock right down there. I also like the Silicone Mat because it's kind of rubbery, right? So my cardstock is not going to slide, which is nice when you're blending to hold it in place. So we're going to start really simply with just one color. I have some Coastal Cabana ink. And what we are going to do is we're going to do like a puff of ink right here in the center of the paper. Now, I want to start by inking up my blending brush, and you want to kind of, you know, get some good ink on there. So kind of circle that in there, rub it in. And then I take a clear block and I just tap out some of the extra ink, especially when I am doing this technique with the ink right in the center of the paper. So you want to start with a light pressure and rub it, and then slowly you can start to get more and more pressure. But you don't want to start with a real firm pressure to start with, because you'll get, you know, kind of a giant splotch of ink. You want to start soft and then get firmer, right? So I'm just going to start very, very softly. And then I just start pressing a little bit more. After you've kind of rubbed out a lot of the ink, you can kind of get towards the outside, and that just gives you a really nice little puff. Now you'll see it is a little bit less colored. I can come in with the ink from my block, and again, just trying to, you know, blend that in a little bit more, and doing just a real soft pressure. All right, so that is just to give you a nice soft puff of ink in the center of your page. Let me show you the card I made with this. And I think this I used Coastal Cabana. I think I used Pool Party on this one. So isn't that really sweet though? You just have that nice puff behind there, which just gives it just a little bit extra color that your flowers are kind of based on. So we have those flowers there, and then I just stamped the happy with some StazOn jet black ink, and then the birthday and the other flowers. I also added some of the new black matte dots to the center of those flowers, which is really sweet too. They just look really nice, kind of gives it a little pop. So that's that card. Let's move on to the second technique. So for the second technique, I'm also just going to use one color, but this time we are going to start at one end and blend it off towards the top. So I'm going to use Blushing Bride ink for this. Let me just switch out my ink pads. So I'm going to use some Blushing Bride. And I'm going to use this one. And once again, I'm just going to get some good ink, kind of rub that in, tap it out. And now I'm going to move this over a little bit. I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm starting a little bit off the page because that will get any, harsh marks and then move on to the page. So I'm just starting off the page, and then we'll just roll it right up. And again, I'm going to start with a lighter pressure and then get firmer. Now I want to go, kind of far up this page, so we're going to grab some more. And I might just come in a little bit firmer right at the beginning just to get it nice and dark here at the bottom. And after I've kind of done, gotten off a lot of that ink, then I'll start pulling it up towards the top. Just keep rubbing in circles until you get the color that you want. You can always make it darker, you can't make it lighter, so go in and pick up some of the ink from that ink block. And just like that, let's get a little bit more down in this corner here. And it gives you a nice ombre effect. Ooh, and I got some some fingerprints on there. I'm going to show you what we're going to do to avoid fingerprints in just a minute. So that is just giving you a nice ombre effect on your cardstock with just one color. So let me show you the card that I made with this. And that is that card. Once again, I just used some of the die cut, so I die cut that in black, and then a little flower. I put a little champagne rhinestone right on there, stamped the happy with the jet black StazOn ink. So just really pretty, simple and sweet. Very, very simple, that card. All right, we are going to move on to technique number 3. And let me grab another piece of paper. And once again, we're going to start with the Blushing Bride. We're going to do this just a little bit different. I'm going to wipe off my silicone mat. Normally I would go ahead and I would just go rinse off and dry off my silicone mat, but I'm just going to wipe that off with a paper towel. And then I'm actually going to keep a paper towel because as I get going, I'm going to want to use that to keep fingerprints off it. So I'm going to ink this up in the Blushing Bride once again. This time I'm going to start kind of towards the top, but not all the way at the top, because I want to get it really light up here at the top. So we want it darker and then do just what we did on the other one, but we're just doing it towards the top of the sheet to begin with, because we're going to do multicolors this time. So I'm starting with the Blushing Bride. Getting a nice coat of the Blushing Bride on there. And then I'm going to rub that off on my paper so I can switch colors. I'm using kind of the same color though, so I'm using another pink, so it's okay if it's not perfect. I am going to switch to, and I hope I grabbed the right colors for this. I'm going to switch to the Petal Pink. It's hard to remember exactly what I did. Does that ever happen to you? You should learn to write down, right? All All right, so this is going to come right in here. And I don't think I did. I think on my sample I used Petal Pink, Petal Pink, Flirty Flamingo, and Highland Heather. But this one I guess is going to be Blushing Bride, Petal Pink, and Highland Heather. But you can see I start to pull that into where that Blushing Bride is. And we're going to come back to the Blushing Bride. I'm going to grab the Blushing Bride back out. And just add some more of that back in. So I'm going to kind of go over, where those two are coming together with the Blushing Bride now. And just blend them till they're nice and smooth. And grab some more Petal Pink. Get those, and now I'll move this up again. And we're going to grab my third color. Just kind of moving some stuff out of the way here. I want to grab my third color, which is going to be the Highland Heather. So I'm going to use a different brush for this purple. Bring in another block. Oops, that had blue on it. We'll flip it over. All right. And then we'll just blend this all the way down here at the bottom. So again, just kind of starting down here at the bottom, getting some really nice purpley color. And this, I think I used the pink, the Flirty Flamingo in the center there. I'm sure of it. I'm not liking the way that the Highland Heather is really blending with the Petal Pink, but it's okay. Oops. Put that on. I'm going to come back and do a little bit more Petal Pink. Those together. A little more Highland Heather. You can see how those three colors just all blend one to the other. Now, like I said, I'm not sure that I like the Petal Pink with the Highland Heather. It got a little bit brown in there, but I'm pretty sure the other one I did Petal Pink, Flirty Flamingo, and Highland Heather. And the Flirty Flamingo and the Highland Heather looked pretty nice. Let me show you the sample that I have. So there you can see how it just kind of fades. This would be a really great sunset. But again, I wanted to use it with that Pretty Perennials stamp set and dies. So I just stamped it and I added those dies. I have some more champagne rhinestones. Just really pretty card. All right, so let's move on to the next technique. I'm gonna switch colors again. And I'm gonna come back in with some blues. So let me just get my ink pads out of the way. I'm gonna wipe off some of my clear blocks so I can put some different colors on them. And I'm going to grab a new paper towel. All right. So now I'm going to do another blended background, but then we're going to add a little extra touch to it. So I want to start with some Pool Party ink, and I'm going to flip this over. That way I don't have to wipe it off. And I'm just going to try to get off some of that extra Coastal Cabana ink that might still be in there. When you're switching between light colors, you can just wipe it off on some paper until it seems to have most of the ink out of there. You can, when you're all done, what I like to do at the end of the day after I'm done blending is that I like to take them and just rinse them out under the sink and then let them dry overnight. And by morning, they'll be nice and dry and ready to go again. I'm just gonna ink that up in the Pool Party. And then I'm gonna start over here. My Pool Party is nice and inky, so it's pretty dark. It's always good to make sure that your ink pads are pretty well inked before you start ink blending. But that doesn't always happen, right? Sometimes you don't realize how much it needs to be inked until you get started. So, all right, so there's my first layer of Pool Party. And then I'm going to come in with some Coastal Cabana. We'll just get some nice Coastal Cabana going in the center there. Just rubbing till it's nice and covered. You might have to come in multiple times to get it nice, nicely covered. And grab some more of the Pool Party and go back over where those two are meeting. All right, now, so I have those two colors on there. Now I want to come in with some Bermuda Bay. So these colors are all kind of in the same hue, right? They just get darker. And come back in with some more Coastal Cabana and go over where they're meeting. Just get those all nicely blended there. All right, now maybe I'll come back up at the top. There we go. All right, so once that is done, we're gonna do something a little bit more fun. I got some light spots there, but I'm not gonna worry about it. You could keep going and really ink that till you didn't have, uneven spots. What I am going to do is that I have a spray bottle. Now I'm not using a Stampin' Mister because those give too fine of a spray. I have an old spray bottle that used to give a really nice, fine, misty spray, but it got knocked off my counter too many times, and now it kind of gives a bleh spray, but that is perfect for this technique because I don't want it to be fine. I want it to be kind of all over the place. So I'm just gonna get some water speckles on there. Ooh, that's gonna be a big one. That will be a big one too. And I'm gonna give it just a minute to kind of soak in a little bit there. And then I can put my paper towel over it and kind of grab some of the extra water. And there you can see what that does. So it just kind of lifts up some of that ink and gives you water spots on it. Isn't that cool? Really fun technique. Let me show you a card that I made with this. So here is the card. And you can just see once it dries, it kind of dries a little bit lighter even as the inks soak in. So isn't that pretty? And I just cut these out. These are die cut from some black cardstock. So fun card, fun little technique. I want to show you kind of 1/2 more techniques before I go. So We're going to use the same colors again, but this time I am going to I'm going to use the Basic Pattern Decorative Masks. So these are really fun masks. They're plastic masks and they come in different patterns. There's a polka dot and a tree pattern. Move this, you can see there's a tree pattern. And then there is kind of like this, I don't know what it is, that pattern. And then there's kind of this Art Deco-y leaf pattern. So I'm going to use the dots today just to keep things simple. I'm going to grab another piece of basic white cardstock. I'm just going to set this, I'll go ahead and maybe wipe up around the sides just a little bit. So I'm just going to set this down and I'm going to lay my mask over top. Now I do kind of want to make sure this is square on there, and I'm going to grab, normally I should tape down my mask to really hold it in place. I'm going to skip that step. We're just going to go with it like this. So once again, I'm going to start with the pool party because I'm going to use those same colors. I'm going to wipe out my brush on my grid paper here. I'll go in and grab some pool party. And I'll start right up here at the top. The blending brushes work really, really well with the stencils. And you can see it shifting a little bit because I did not tape it down. But it will be okay. So put that pool party on there. And I will come in with some Coastal Cabana. We'll do some Coastal Cabana right over top. Just blending it into it again. And then we will use the Bermuda Bay. So the same three colors we used last time. Just mixing that into place. Now I could go back over this a few times like I did with the other and kind of mix over the spots again, but I just want to show you how that gives you a beautiful polka dot background that has kind of an ombre effect to it because I use the different colors. So isn't that fun? Super fun. Let me show you the card I made with this. So here's this one. So it just gives a nice fun polka dot background. And this is the Magenta Madness. Isn't that pretty? All right, so let me show you my last technique, which is actually very similar to the techniques I've already done. I'm gonna put my ink pads away, even though in just a minute I'm gonna open them all back up again, but that's okay. So I'm gonna take a quick pause and I'm gonna go wash off all this stuff and then I will be back to do kind of another slightly messier technique. Okay, so I have rinsed off my silicone mat and my stencil here so I can use them again. I'm gonna grab another sheet of basic white cardstock and I'm gonna lay my stencil over the top. Try to get it square-ish on there. And then I'm gonna come in with my Versamark ink pad and I am just going to pop this right over the top here. And you'll definitely want to wash off your stencil after this, and you might even want to use some soap on there, just some hand soap or dish soap or something. So now I have those polka dots on there. And I'm going to grab some scratch paper, because I'm going to heat emboss this. So I'm going to put some white embossing powder on the top of this. I'm just going to dump that on. very carefully try to get it onto my scrap paper, not all over the place. And the edges kind of were a little bit hit or miss here, but that's okay. I always kind of often will leave my paper a little bit bigger than what I need when I'm doing these techniques so that I can cut off the sides, because a lot of times the sides don't end up real nice. So, all right, dump my embossing powder back in to my little tub. And then we will heat set this. Now I'm going to heat set this with my heat gun. I want to work in small areas and keep moving as I go, because I don't want to hold it in one spot too much, because you could end up scorching your paper. And you don't want to overheat the embossing powder either, because it will just kind of melt into the paper. So you can see it as it turns shiny and plasticky. You might not be able to see it on the video, but when you're actually doing it in real life, you can see it. So. Okay, so that embossing powder is all nice and melted right on there. I'm going to give it just a half second to cool. So you don't have to worry too much. It cools pretty fast, but if you move on too quickly, your embossing powder could still be a little bit sticky on the top, but it's fine now. So just, give it half a second to cool. And then we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to come in with those same colors. Start with some Pool Party. Grab me a new paper towel. I always close my ink pads when I'm doing heat embossing, because I don't want to accidentally get embossing powder into my ink pad. So that is why I closed all of those. And you'll see that that embossing powder just resists that ink. Come in with my next color with the Coastal Cabana. I'm giving this some good pressure here, so you can hear my table kind of. So just put that Coastal Cabana on there, and then we'll come in with the Bermuda Bay as well. Back with some more Coastal Cabana. And then I'm going to grab a little Pool Party just to finish off up here. So there's my 3 inks on there. And then what I can do is take some paper towel and just rub this off the top. Get that off that embossing powder. Now sometimes what you can do is just take your embossing gun and just quick zap that embossing powder again, which will help really bring back out that shine. Again, though, you don't want to heat it too much, because you don't want it to just melt into the paper. So there's that fun ombre effect with doing a emboss resist. So let me show you the card that I made with this. This is very similar to the last card. I just turned it, and then it's using that paper instead. Isn't that gorgeous? So much fun. Let me show you these two together. You can tell me which you prefer, whether just the straight up stenciling or the emboss resist. Both super fun cards. So let's look at all these techniques. Let me show you all these pieces of paper again, if I can find them all. Get everything moved out of the way. here's our emboss resist and just the stenciling, the ombre with the water squirted on it, our multicolor ombre, and the single color ombre, and then that first one we did with just that poof of ink. So six different ways to use your blending brushes that are, they kind of all build on each other, but they're very similar, but just a little bit different. So just some fun things to do with the new blending brushes. Super fun, easy to use. Might take a little bit of practice though, but definitely grab them and try it because they're super, super fun. Weren't those some fabulous techniques using the new Stampin' Up! Blending brushes, and some great cards to go with them using that new Pretty Perennials stamp set that I absolutely love. Don't forget, you can find all the dimensions for today's cards, as well as photos of the cards over on my website, and the link to my website is in the description to this video. If you liked today's video, make sure that you like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and then come back and see me for more tips, techniques, and inspiration.